I trusted my parents with my entire life savings, $140,000. I never imagined the people who gave me life would try to steal it. But when the police showed up at their door, everything changed. I had worked for years to save every dollar. Late nights, extra jobs, sacrifices that no one else seemed to notice. $140,000. All of it in my account. Safe. My future. I trusted my parents blindly. I told myself they were just helping me manage it. After all, they had always been responsible. Then came the day I checked my balance and froze. The account was empty. Gone. $140,000. Vanished. At first, I thought it was a bank error, a glitch, maybe even a fraud. But then I saw the transfers. All to my parents. I called them immediately. "Mom, Dad, why did you take my savings?" The voice on the other end was calm, almost too calm. "We just wanted to help you invest. Don't worry, it's for your future." I should have known something was wrong. The tone, the casual lie. It didn't feel like help. That's when I realized. They didn't see it as my money. They saw it as theirs. A safety net. A free loan they never planned to return. Panic rose in my chest. But I didn't act rashly. I knew I needed proof. Every transaction, every message, every lie. The next day, I went to confront them in person. I expected excuses, pleading, maybe even tears. Instead, they laughed. "You worry too much. It's your own money, but you're young. We know what's best." That was the last straw. That's when I realized something terrifying. They didn't just want my money. They wanted control. And I was never going to get it back, unless I fought. I knew the fight had to be careful, strategic, and unstoppable. I couldn't scream at them. I couldn't cry. I couldn't beg. I had to make them face consequences. And I had to make sure the police would do what I couldn't. Show them the price of betrayal. After seeing their calm, dismissive faces, I realized I couldn't rely on words alone. They had stolen my $140,000, and no amount of arguing would make them return it. I needed proof. Every transaction, every message, every lie. I started by collecting every digital trail, bank statements, emails, text messages, even old voicemails where they casually joked about handling my money better than I could. Each piece of evidence told the same story. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. Next, I reached out to a trusted friend who was a financial advisor. "I need to make sure I cover everything legally," I told him. "I can't just confront them without being prepared." He nodded. He understood. He had seen this kind of manipulation before. I also installed security measures, hidden cameras around my home office, screenshots of every conversation, everything documented. I knew parents could twist words, hide messages, and act innocent. I couldn't let them. Not this time. Meanwhile, I stayed calm around them. I acted normal, polite, even joking sometimes. They thought they had the upper hand. They thought I didn't suspect anything. Little did they know, I was building a case that would not only expose them, but force consequences. Then came the plan. I would wait for the right moment, when everything was undeniable. I would show the proof to authorities, and I would make them face something far worse than just shame, the law. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about justice, betrayal, and reclaiming control of my life. By the end of the week, I had everything ready. Every screenshot, every statement, every proof of manipulation. And I knew one thing for sure. When the police finally showed up at their door, the look on their faces would be priceless. I never imagined the day would feel so surreal. It started like any normal afternoon. I pretended to be calm around my parents, sipping coffee, asking about their day, laughing at their jokes. They still thought they had won. Then came the knock on the door. 2 uniformed police officers stood there, their expressions serious, their presence heavy. "We need to speak with you regarding a financial complaint," one of them said. My parents froze. The smiles vanished instantly. Their eyes darted to me, panic barely concealed. "What complaint?" my mother stammered. "It must be some mistake," my father added. Mistake? The $140,000 they thought they had casually taken? The proof was all documented. The law was about to speak louder than their lies. The officers asked them questions. "Did you withdraw $140,000 from your child's account? Did you inform them or have permission? Are these transfers legitimate?" Every answer was shaky. Every lie crumbled under the weight of evidence I had provided. I watched quietly from the side, heart pounding, but calm. For years I had trusted them. For years I had hoped for honesty. But now the tables had turned.
Neighbors who witnessed the officer's arrival whispered among themselves. The family's quiet respect for my parents began to shift. People who had always admired their wisdom now glanced with doubt. My parents tried to argue, tried to charm, tried to manipulate even the officers. "We were just trying to help," they pleaded. "It's for their own good." But the evidence didn't lie. Screenshots, bank statements, witness statements. Every fraudulent transfer clearly showed intent. I didn't need to say a word. The proof spoke for me. The betrayal, the lies, and the greed were exposed. And for the first time, my parents realized something terrifying. I was serious. I wasn't their child anymore to control. I was the person who had quietly prepared everything to ensure they faced consequences. By the time the police left, my parents were pale and shaken. Not a single word of arrogance remained. They had underestimated me completely. I finally understood the power of preparation, patience, and evidence. Justice was no longer just a concept. It was happening in real time.
The house felt different after the police left. Heavier, quieter, like the walls themselves were listening. My parents didn't say a word to me. They couldn't, because for the first time in their lives, they had been exposed, not as caring parents, but as people who crossed a line they could never uncross. My mother sat on the couch, hands shaking. My father paced the room, running his fingers through his hair, mumbling excuses that no one was listening to. "This didn't have to happen," he said quietly. "You could have just talked to us." I looked at him calmly. "I did talk to you. You laughed." Silence followed. Within days, the consequences started spreading. The bank froze accounts. Transactions were flagged. Questions were asked by professionals who don't accept emotional excuses. Family members started calling, not to blame me, but to ask what really happened. The story they had been told for years about responsible, selfless parents was starting to fall apart.
At a family gathering that weekend, the atmosphere was unbearable. Whispers followed my parents everywhere. No one said it out loud, but everyone knew. The respect they once enjoyed was gone, not stolen, earned, and then destroyed by their own greed. My mother tried one last tactic: tears. "How could you do this to us?" she asked. "We're your parents." I didn't raise my voice. "You were supposed to protect me. Instead, you took from me." That was the moment she understood. Being parents didn't make them untouchable. They weren't angry anymore. They were ashamed, and shame is far worse. That night, I realized something important. This wasn't revenge driven by rage. It was justice driven by clarity. They had drained my savings, but in the process, they had drained their own authority over my life. A few days later, my parents finally approached me, not with confidence, not with explanations, but with fear in their eyes. "Please, we didn't mean for it to go this far," my mother said. "We can pay you back. Just forgive us." My father stood behind her, nodding silently, shame written all over his face. I listened quietly. Their words were empty. Empty because actions speak louder than apologies. "Forgive you?" I said softly, my voice steady. "Do you realize how long I trusted you? How I believed in your guidance?" They flinched. We were just trying to help," my father stammered. "We thought we knew what was best." I shook my head. "Help? You call stealing my $140,000 help?" They tried to justify themselves. They tried to cry. They tried to manipulate with excuses and guilt. But nothing worked. The police had already visited. Evidence had been documented. Family members were quietly watching and realizing the truth.
They weren't going to get away with lies anymore. I had a choice. I could scream. I could retaliate further. But I didn't. Because the best revenge is letting consequences speak for themselves. Their guilt, their humiliation, and the law were now my allies. I didn't need to fight. The universe was doing it for me. As they left the room, their heads down, I felt a strange sense of calm. This was not just about money. It was about trust broken, boundaries crossed, and respect stolen. And now, finally, the lesson had been delivered.
After the confrontation with the police, the fallout began quietly, but it was devastating. Neighbors and extended family, who had always admired my parents, began noticing changes. Whispers in the neighborhood, questions at family gatherings, glances that said more than words ever could. "Did you hear about what happened with their child's savings? I can't believe they did that. That's not the parents we thought we knew." Social media, too, became a minefield for them. Family members shared stories subtly. Friends commented on odd behavior. Even their own acquaintances were questioning everything. Their carefully curated image of being responsible, trustworthy, and wise was crumbling piece by piece. My parents tried to counteract it. "It was just a misunderstanding," my father said to anyone who would listen. "We were only trying to help," my mother added, their voices almost desperate. But the proof was undeniable. Screenshots, bank statements, recorded evidence. Every lie they tried to spin was shattered by facts.
I stayed away from the gossip. No public shaming, no confrontations, no posts to humiliate them. I let the truth and the evidence do the work. And the truth is crueler than any words I could have said. Even family gatherings became tense. Relatives no longer looked at them with admiration. They were cautious, questioning. The respect my parents had once commanded was gone. The sense of authority they had wielded over me and others was irreparably broken. And the most satisfying part? They knew it. Every glance, every whisper, every uncomfortable silence reminded them that their actions had consequences. For the first time, they experienced the humiliation and loss of control they had forced me to feel.
Their manipulation had backfired completely. Friends doubted them. Neighbors whispered. Family questioned every past story. They were trapped in the consequences of their own actions, unable to control the narrative they once thought they owned. For the first time, I saw fear in their eyes. Fear not of me, fear of reality. Fear of everyone discovering what they had done. And that fear was the final proof of their failure.
The tension in the house had become impossible to ignore. Family members who had once trusted my parents began quietly asking questions. Why did this happen? Did they really take your savings? We never knew this side of them. I answered calmly, fact by fact. Every transaction documented, every message saved, every excuse they made clearly disproven. I didn't need to exaggerate. The truth spoke for itself. At the next family gathering, the shift was clear. Conversations that once revolved around my parents' authority now focused on their actions.
Relatives whispered, friends questioned. Even close family who had defended them began to see the reality. My parents tried to speak, to justify, to charm, but no one listened. The trust they once commanded was gone. It wasn't just embarrassment anymore. It was a total loss of credibility. Even casual relatives who had never been involved now approached me privately, asking, "Were they really that bold? How did you find out? You did the right thing." My parents' usual dominance was gone. They were now on the defensive, trying to explain, pleading silently for support that no one gave. They realized, finally, that their lies and greed had isolated them completely.
And in that quiet, intense moment, I felt something profound. I hadn't just reclaimed my money. I had reclaimed control, respect, and justice. Their lesson had been delivered, painfully and publicly. After the family finally realized the truth, my parents' world began to crumble. No one defended them anymore. No one believed their excuses. Even distant relatives who had once admired them now avoided eye contact. They tried to reach out to me privately. "Please, we didn't mean for it to get this far," my mother said. "We can return the money. Just forgive us." I listened quietly, calmly. "Forgive you? Do you understand what you did?" I asked. "This wasn't just money. It was trust. It was respect. You took it all for granted." Friends and neighbors who once praised them began questioning every past action. Their reputation was collapsing piece by piece. Every message they sent, every explanation, only highlighted their greed and deceit. Even my parents' own children noticed the change. "Why is everyone looking at Mom and Dad like that? Why is everyone whispering?" Their guilt and panic grew. They were alone in a reality of their own making. I didn't gloat. I didn't mock. I just stood silently and let them experience the weight of their betrayal. For the first time, they realized that actions have consequences, and the law, the family, and the truth were all watching. By now, they understood it clearly. They had lost control. The power they thought they had over me, over the family, over perception, was gone, and there was no turning back. By now, the story had reached its final act. My parents' lies had been exposed. Their manipulation had failed. Their reputation was shattered. And they finally understood something they had never realized. Actions have consequences. The final confrontation wasn't dramatic. I didn't yell. I didn't rage. I simply spoke calmly, clearly, with the authority that comes from truth. You wanted control. You wanted to take what wasn't yours. You wanted to manipulate the family. But now, you're facing the results of your choices. They were silent. Not a word. Not a defense. Only the heavy weight of shame and regret. Family members who had doubted me approached quietly. "We're sorry we didn't see it sooner. Thank you for standing your ground." No lectures, no public humiliation, just acknowledgement of truth. My parents remained behind, broken and humiliated. I walked away quietly, calm, unshaken. Because revenge, when done correctly, isn't about chaos. It's about justice, timing, and letting people face the consequences of their actions. I had reclaimed what was mine. I had restored my trust in myself. And I had shown that boundaries must always be respected, even by those who gave you life. Some people only learn lessons the hard way. My parents had finally learned theirs.